I never thought I'd uncover the heartbreaking sacrifices behind a Brazilian business titan's rise. It all began one dim afternoon, the kind that drenches the world in a thick, gray silence. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I'd been tracking my leads diligently, but this one felt different. As I stumbled upon rumors swirling like autumn leaves around this enigmatic figure, Rafael Ferreira, I felt a chill in my bones. It was whispered that he didn't just climb the ladder of success. He had left pieces of his soul scattered with each rung. The shadows danced around him. His past was a web of whispered secrets and hushed betrayals. People said he was ruthless, yet, beneath his sharp suit and polished veneer, there was something else, vulnerability, perhaps? He had come from nothing. A broken home riddled with poverty, a mother who worked herself into the ground, and a father who vanished like smoke, leaving only echoes of pain. His rise was meteoric, but as my heart raced with every new clue, I felt something deeper, a story pulsing beneath the surface, begging for release. Would I be the one to unravel it? I dug deeper, looking for the truth that lay buried under layers of success. I learned he'd twisted lives for his fortune-betrayed friends, crushed dreams, abandoned love. Each revelation hit me like ice-cold water. Was his success worth the blood on his hands? The more I uncovered, the more questions twisted in my stomach. I saw flashes of raw ambition, but also glimpses of a lonely man, sitting in a shadowy corner, haunted eyes glistening with unshed tears. His loneliness weighed heavily on his chest. Was the cost of his success measured in human lives? Or was it simply a trade-off he was too far into to resolve? What pushed him to the edge? Was it guilt, regret, or something darker flying just below the surface, lurking and waiting? Each snippet of information felt like a knife twisting in my gut, urging me forward even as a knot tightened in my throat. The final revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. His greatest sacrifice had let go of love itself. A woman named Clara, his childhood sweetheart, left behind to make room for his empire. I could almost hear the unspoken apology hanging in the air. What had he done to her? How had their love, once so vibrant, faded into nothingness as sugar turned bitter? I was left trembling, the silence in that moment deafening. What was the truth? What had he really sacrificed to become the man feared and revered in Brazil? I was inches away from understanding and yet equally distant. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting an indigo veil over the city, I found myself standing outside a quaint cafe that once served as a meeting place for Rafael and Clara. The sound of laughter and clinking cups wafted out like an invitation, each note tugging at the frayed edges of my curiosity. I hesitated, glancing around as if the air itself could whisper secrets to me. My heart raced with anticipation, a mixture of fear and hope. The stories I had uncovered weighed heavily on my shoulders, yet the thought of Clara stirred a longing for answers. What had happened to the woman who once held his heart? Did she resent him for the choices he made, or had she come to understand the depths of his sacrifices? Gathering my courage, I stepped inside, the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloping me like an embrace. The cafe was small, with painted walls adorned with photographs of the bustling streets nearby. I made my way to a corner table, ordering a cappuccino that felt almost trivial compared to the profound questions poised on my lips. If I were to find Clara, I might need to peel back layers of pain and hope. A daunting task, but one that felt imperative. As I sat, my mind replayed Raphael's story, a symphony of sorrow and ambition. Suddenly, an elderly woman sitting at the table next to mine caught my eye. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took a sip from her cup, nearly spilling it. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching me. Her gaze penetrated, filled with an understanding of loss. "Excuse me," I ventured, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you know of a woman named Clara? Clara Almeida?" The woman's brow furrowed momentarily before a flicker of recognition danced in her eyes. "Ah, Clara. A lovely girl. Beautiful inside and out." Her voice was thick with memory, as if each word was a cherished artifact. "But you're too late, dear." The finality in her tone was like a punch to my gut. "What do you mean?" She sighed, a sorrowful smile creeping onto her face, filled with both warmth and sadness. "She left Brazil years ago. When Raphael climbed to the top, he took everything with him. They were young and in love, but dreams have a way of consuming everything, don't they?" "Where did she go?" I pressed, desperation creeping into my voice. The woman shrugged, looking out of the window, as if seeking an answer among the passing clouds. "No one knows for sure. I heard whispers of her moving to Portugal. But she's a different woman now, I suppose. She had to be." I nodded, feeling my heart sink. Had Clara managed to escape the cacophony of Raphael's shadow, or was she trapped in a maze of memories that held her captive? The elderly woman leaned in closer, her eyes reflecting a life lived through the pages of love and loss. "You know, sweetheart, sometimes people leave not just to find themselves, but to leave behind what has become unbearable to bear." Her words struck a chord within me, resonating with the conflict churning inside my soul. Could I understand that burden if I pushed deeper into Raphael's world? Would uncovering more truths reveal the beauty or the devastation of their love? With a heavy heart, I thanked her and left the cafe, my resolve only somewhat strengthened. I needed to find Clara. I needed to understand the woman who had once meant everything to Raphael. I found myself wandering the streets under the flickering city lights, each step fueled by a relentless curiosity mingled with fear as I scoured online forums and social media. Little by little, I pieced together Clara's trail. There were whispers of her in Lisbon, each thread pulling me closer. Yet the deeper I dove, the more I wondered if the truth would shatter my perception of love forever. Finally, one late evening, I stumbled upon an old connection, a mutual friend from their shared youth, who claimed to have seen Clara just last week. My heart pounded as I sent a message, praying for a crumb that might lead to the heart of the matter. And then I received the reply. The words sizzled with electricity. "She's still here, but she's not who you think she is anymore." The weight of uncertainty settled in my chest as I peered at the glowing screen, teetering on the edge of something profound. What had time and distance forged her into? Would she be willing to share her story? Or was the pain too great, the scars too deep? As I stared into the darkness, clinging to this thread of hope, I realized the road ahead would be fraught with emotionally charged revelations. My journey was transforming. I was no longer a mere observer of Raphael's life, but a participant in his pasta bridge to a woman who had lost everything to ambition, love, and sacrifice. Navigating through shadows of heartbreak and betrayal, I braced myself for what would come next, knowing the truth I sought might swallow me whole. As days turned into weeks, I found myself spiraling deeper into the labyrinth of Raphael's past, my heart feeling every twist and turn of emotion like a taut string ready to snap. The fleeting glimmers of hope were nearly eclipsed by the weight of uncertainty. Was Clara still that vibrant dreamer, or had the years bleached her spirit into a faded whisper of what once was? The message from the mutual friend lingered in my mind like a haunting melody. I needed to see her, yet the shadow of dread danced behind my eyes. What would I say? Was it right to intrude upon her life after all this time? After what felt like an eternity of wrestling with my conscience, I finally summoned the nerve to reach out again. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I typed her name into the search bar on a popular social media platform. As I scrolled through the images, I found myself holding my breath. Each photograph seemed to tell stories of its own, snippets of laughter caught in frames, a curated life punctuated by colors of joy and serenity. And then, my heart lurched. An image of Clara appeared, a woman closing her eyes, tilting her head back to embrace the sun, a carefree grin spreading across her face. It was as if time had folded, and the girl who once loved Raphael was right before me. But there was something different, a guardedness in her smile, a flicker of sadness in her gaze. I took a breath and decided to send her a message, fueled by a mixture of eagerness and trepidation. Clara, I think I might be able to help you reconnect with someone from your past. Would you be open to meeting? The mere act of reaching out felt like throwing a message in a bottle into a tempestuous sea. Days passed without a word, and I feared I had lost my chance. But the moment of doubt was shattered with a ping. Her response rang sharp and clear that I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of conversation. The weight of her hesitation pressed against my chest, urging me to tread lightly. I understand. If you don't mind sharing, could I ask what makes you feel this way? Clara's response was a trail of tender honesty, one marked with the imperfections of her journey. There are scars that tell stories no one should have to hear. I had to bury pieces of myself to move forward, she wrote, her vulnerability raw and palpable, and my own heart ached. It was a resonance, a painful connection to her experience, to Raphael's journey and the sacrifices borne in silence. I believe every story deserves to be heard, Clara, I wrote, sincere in my belief. I'm not here to judge your choices, just to understand. A flicker of time passed before she replied. Meet me at the old park by the water. I may not be who you think, but I'll tell you my story. As I approached the park, my thoughts were a tumultuous sea, anticipation battling trepidation. The air was filled with the scent of fresh blooms, and the sun hung low, wrapping everything in a golden embrace. When I spotted Clara, my heart raced. She looked different, yet there was an inherent beauty that felt undeniably familiar. Thank you for coming, she murmured, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. Thank you for giving me the chance, I replied, searching her eyes for a sign of the brave girl she once was. As we sat on a weathered bench overlooking the shimmering water, I felt the gravity of the moment settle around us. Clara spoke softly about her life in Portugal, about the dreams she once had and the sacrifices she never intended to make. Each word fell from her lips like fragile glass, reflecting both hope and despair. What happened between you and Raphael? I dared to ask, feeling the tremor of vulnerability echoing in her voice. There was love, yes, but love in the face of ambition can twist into something unrecognizable, she confessed, and the pain etched in her features was stark against the backdrop of the idyllic scene. He wanted to reach heights that pulled him further away from me, and I, being naive, thought I could tether him to the ground. A chill overtook me, an unbearable sadness. Did you ever resent him for that? She let out, a soft, mirthless laugh. Resentment is a double-edged sword. It can become a comfort if you allow it. But in my heart, I realized too late that holding on to that anger only left me haunted. The air grew thick with her unshed tears, and I felt every chord of unprocessed grief vibrating in my own chest. What did you lose, Clara? The moment seemed to stretch indefinitely as her eyes glistened. Myself. In loving him, I forgot who I was beyond that. I became a reflection of his desires. But just as the floodgates began to open, revealing the deeper wounds hidden beneath, a sudden commotion across the park snapped our attention. A man stood at the edge, scanning the area with a frantic inertia, look of desperation clinging to him like a shadow. Suddenly, he caught sight of Clara, and I watched in horror as recognition flickered across his face. Clara, he shouted, rushing toward us, each step packed with a sense of urgency that sent a shiver down my spine. My mind spun with questions, waves of confusion surging as the air thickened with tension. Who was this man? What connection did he have to Clara? And more importantly, what kind of revelations lurked behind the curtain of their past? As he arrived, breathless and frantic, I noticed how Clara's expression shifted, the shimmer of fond memories intertwining with the tension that filled the air. What are you doing here? She gasped, a bewildered mixture of dread and relief etched across her face. In that moment, the emotional landscape shifted dramatically. I realized I was standing on the precipice of an even deeper secret, one that could bridge or shatter the connection I had just begun to forge with her. The questions loomed over me heavy and unyielding as the new confrontation threatened to unravel everything we'd just begun to share. The world around us faded into insignificance while Clara's past surged forward, crashing into the tender space we had begun to create. As Clara stood, frozen in place, the man's calling pierced the quiet serenity of the park, sending ripples of unease coursing through the air. The gravity of his presence enveloped us, an unexpected storm intruding upon our fragile moment of connection. I remained seated, heart pounding, trying to process the sudden turn of events that felt more scripted than real, straining to catch her breath. Clara continued to stare at the man as if trying to reconcile a part of her history she had long stashed away. His approach was marked by urgency, but there was something else, a flicker of anguish in his eyes that warned of pending storms. "Clara, you have to listen to me," he implored, voice edged with desperation. "Mark." Her voice trembled, grasped tight in a web spun from fear and confusion. "Please just hear me out. It's about Raphael." He breathed, the name hanging between us like a thunderclap. My heart seized, taut with dread. If Raphael's name could weave its way back into this moment, where did that leave the tentative bond one had just begun to foster with Clara? "Raphael," she finally asked, an echo of wounded hope that faded into uncertainty. "What do you mean? How do you know him?" "I know more than you think." Mark's voice cracked slightly as he continued. "He's in danger, and it's worse than you can imagine. I came to find you because you need to be part of this. He needs you." Every fabric of my being was set ablaze with curiosity and dread. I wanted to pry, to demand answers, but Clara's wide eyes glistened with a tumult of emotions, and it was clear she was anchored in a storm of her own. The world around us became nothing but a blurred background, the laughter of children no longer a comforting backdrop but a faint echo in the chaos building within us. "Danger?" Clara whispered, her voice laden with disbelief and pain. It was as if she was wrestling with echoes of her past, the remnants of a love that had mired her spirit in uncertainty. What could happen to him now? I stood up, the urge to protect her burgeoning like a wildflower yearning for sunlight. "Maybe you should just explain what you know," I urged cautiously, feeling the tension knotting between the three of us tighten with every passing second. "We can help figure this out." Mark's eyes darted between us, the turmoil cascading from his past flooding the air. "You have to be careful, Clara. There are things he's been involved in, decisions that haunt him, and they're catching up to him." Clara blinked, her composure fracturing even further. "Tell me," she pleaded softly, each word dripping with the weight of their shared history. "Is he okay?" "No," Mark replied gravely, each syllable a hammer striking the silence. "They're coming for him, Clara. But you may be the key to getting through this. They will use everything even against you to get to him." Her face paled, the color draining as she fought to process the revelation. My heart broke for her, for the distant echoes of love that still lingered around her like an old, familiar song. A blend of hope and despair intertwined. "What do you mean? What happened?" Clara pressed, and I wished for nothing more than to see her smile again, an unguarded expression devoid of fear. Mark hesitated, grappling with the weight of the truth he had to spill. "After you left, he made risky choices, seeking power and influence. In doing so, he unwittingly attracted attention, dangerous attention." Her expression darkened with recognition, an unrelenting fear clawing at the edges of her resolve. "And now they're after him? Would they come after me too?" "Not if he can keep you hidden," Mark said quickly, a protective instinct lighting his gaze. "But he cannot do it alone any longer. You need to decide, Clara. You can stay away, and maybe live in blissful ignorance, or you can step back into this turmoil and help him fight." The world around me blurred further as I watched Clara wrestle with choices that could alter the course of her life forever. My presence began to feel obtrusive, a silent spectator thrust into a drama far heavier than I could bear. I stepped slightly closer, wanting to offer her comfort, but unsure of how it would all land. Finally, with a shuddering breath, Clara met my eyes, her own shimmering with unshed tears. "What if I'm not enough? What if I can't save him, and I bring danger back into my life?" The flutter of vulnerability in her voice struck a chord in my own heart, and I instinctively took her hand, hoping to lend her strength. "You aren't alone in this, Clara. You have people who care. You have me. But what if I fail him again? She whispered, each word a fragile thread hanging in the air. The fear etched on her face twisted in my chest, rippling like a pebble dropped in still water. Then we will find a way forward together, I replied, gaining confidence. Let him know you care. It might be the thing that pulls him back into the light. As I leaned in, trying to steady her quaking heart, Mark's uneasy presence still loomed, a reminder of the past tearing at the tapestry of our lives. I felt a knot form deep within, realizing the stakes had elevated beyond mere actions. Clara faced shadows woven from memories long hidden, and I sensed we were about to plunge even deeper into darkness. Then, with a sudden flare of urgency, Mark's phone buzzed in his pocket, slicing through the weight with cold precision. He pulled it out, his brows furrowing as he scanned the screen, the pallor of his face deepening. It's them, he whispered, scanning the environment now with a predator's sharpness. They've found us. The world tilted on its axis, panic crystallizing around us as I pulled Clara closer, my heart racing. The answers loomed like shadows against the dusk, and at that moment, the foundations of hope began to tremble. A thunderous roar of tires screeched into the park, and my breath caught as Clara's eyes widened with fear. Everything we had crafted in that delicate moment was shattered, sending us careening into the unknown. In an instant, she made her decision. We have to go, she yelled, urgency blasting through the air as we needed to escape the encroaching darkness. Clara's fragile grip clasped tightly to mine as we faced the storm ahead, a singular moment threading our destinies into one chaotic web of uncertainty. With danger closing in, I could only hope that, in the eye of the hurricane, we would not lose sight of the heart we both sought to protect. As we sprinted through the park, the cacophony of footsteps pounding against the pavement echoed a primal rhythm of fear and urgency. Clara's hand in mine felt like an anchor against the volatility swirling around us. The adrenaline coursing through my veins was sharp and raw, almost overwhelming, yet it latched onto the desperate resolve I could sense radiating from her. Where do we go? I shouted, half tempted to glance back at the figure of Mark, who was still scanning the perimeter. Anxiety gripped me as I realized he was no longer just a part of the equation. He was fast becoming a harbinger of chaos, pulling us deeper into a reality we never anticipated. Anywhere but here, Clara cried, her voice trembling but firm. The clarity of her response ignited a spark of determination within me, and we veered toward the park's edge, the line of trees offering a fractured sanctuary. As we dove into that thicket, I could barely hear the distant hum of the city beyond the claustrophobic cocoon of branches and leaves. My mind raced, thoughts spiraling like autumn leaves caught in an untamed wind. Clara, we'll figure this out. We just need to keep moving, I urged, though I was painfully aware of the uncertainty that loomed like a dark cloud. Her face was pale, illuminated by the slivers of fading sunlight that crept through the foliage above. What if we're too late? She whispered, her words quaking like the rustle of the leaves around us. In those moments, the haunted look in her eyes revealed more than the desperation of the present. It reflected a painful Historia loop of failure that had come back to haunt her. We're not too late, I insisted, though my voice faltered. I clasped her hand tighter, trying to convey a warmth that might push away the chill of dread that was festering in the air around us. Before we could assess our surroundings, Mark caught up to us, panting heavily, his expression a jarring mixture of fear and urgency. They know we're here. We have to move to a safer place now. His eyes flickered with anxiety as he glanced over his shoulder. Without another word, we plunged deeper into the forest, branches snagging at us like anxious fingers as the shadows grew longer. The world shrunk around us, the laughter, the joy, everything I had glimpsed just moments earlier replaced by an oppressive silence, woven tight with the tension of the unknown. You think they saw us? Clara pressed, her voice barely above a whisper, fear shimmering in the dim light. Mark paused momentarily, scanning our surroundings as if he could catch sight of the threat lurking just outside our fragile bubble of safety. Not yet, but we can't risk sticking around. We need to plan something that will help Raphael. God, I just hope we can get to him before it's too late. The mention of Raphael's name was like a stone thrown into an abyss, the ripples echoing with unspoken fears and aspirations. Clara stilled next to me, the weight of that connection coursing through her like electricity. "Where is he now?" she asked, and I could see a flicker of hope igniting deep in her eyes. Twisting through the anxiety, "I don't know," Mark replied. "But I do know he's been keeping a low profile. If they're tracking him, he can't stay where he is for long. Hell need help to stay off their radar." As we crouched in our makeshift hideaway, the realization hit me. This was about more than Raphael. It was Clara's past rising up like a tidal wave, threatening to unravel the future we were only beginning to sketch. "Clara," I murmured, trying to reach her through the chaos taking hold of her mind. While her gaze met mine. That storm of doubt still raged in her expression. But now, alongside it, I caught a glimmer of something brighter: resolve. He was always there when I needed him the most, she whispered, nostalgia clouding her words. "I can't believe I'm contemplating stepping back into that world again." Mark shifted uneasily, a crackle of tension igniting as his phone buzzed again. He stole a glance at the screen, a grimace forming on his face as he read the message. "They're closing in," he warned, teeth gritted in frustration. "We don't have much time." Clara's breath quickened, her resolve apparent amidst the uncertainty. "Then we go to him. We can't let him face this alone," she said decisively, a steely determination fusing with the fear that had threatened to drown her. We devised a plan, each heartbeat driving us closer to a mission fraught with danger. "We'll head to the cafe down the street. It's a place he frequents," Mark suggested, desperate urgency pulsing through every syllable. "Cafe Limo?" Clara gasped. "He used to go there for the coffee and pastries," she said. "They reminded him of my grandmother's baking." A nostalgic smile broke through the tension, if only for a second, until the gravity of our situation pulled her back into the urgent present. "Let's move then," I urged, grabbing her hand again. This time, it felt electric, a bond that amplified our shared mission, steeped in everything unspoken between us, giving rise to a determination that was palpable. Just as we began to navigate the thicket, the unmistakable sound of engines roared in the distance, followed by the flash of headlights breaking through the underbrush. A wave of cold fear washed over us as I pulled Clara and Mark deeper into the shadows. "Run!" I shouted, as we broke free of the tangled branches. Clara's clamp on my hand tightened, propelling us forward with frantic urgency as we burst into the open, where the fading light now slashed at the edges of the horizon, warning us of further darkness to come. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat hammering wildly as the world dissolved into a heady blend of survival instincts and unshakable resolve. But then, as we neared the cafe, I sensed a profound shift in the air, a spark of danger crackling over the once innocuous breeze. Turning the corner, we halted as Clara's breath hitched in her throat. A figure stood there, cloaked in shadow, leaning casually against a lamppost as if awaiting our very arrival. My stomach sank, dread coiling tightly within me. "Surprise," he called, his voice dripping with mockery. "I've been waiting for you." In that chilling moment, we realized the stakes had elevated irreparably. The danger had encircled us, and the game was no longer just about Raphael. It had become a deadly dance involving all we held dear, threads weaving together in a tapestry colored with sacrifice and raw emotion. The figure lingered, suspended in time, fusing the past with the present like an impossibly intricate sculpture. My heart raced as recognition pierced through the haze of fear surging within me. It was Raphael's older brother, Felipe, a man I had only seen in passing, always the stoic silhouette in the background of Raphael's frenetic world. Now appearing like a specter from Clara's past. "Felipe," Clara breathed, an echo of disbelief coloring her voice. She stumbled forward, almost instinctively, squeezed between the longing for connection and the tremendous weight of their shared history. "What are you doing here?" He stepped into the light, revealing a thin sheen of sweat drenching his brow, his silhouette taut like a string pulled tight. "I was hoping to find you, to warn you." His eyes darted to the space beyond us, anxiety keeping him anchored to the spot. "They're not far behind." The news hit us like a slap, and for a moment we could only stand there, the world narrowing down to the very essence of survival. "We can't just leave, Raphael," I implored, my voice trembling at the thought of what fate awaited him. "You must know where he is." He inhaled sharply, his hesitation igniting a firestorm of emotions in Clara. "Hesha's in hiding. He thought it would be safer away from everyone else, that you all would be protected." Felipe's voice cracked, offering a glimpse into the crushing burden he had been carrying. Safer? How could that possibly be safer? Clara's eyes glistened, desperation giving way to emotions I had never seen before. "We need to find him, to bring him back before it's too late." Felipe's gaze fell to the ground, revealing the weight of their brotherly bond, heavy with all the unspoken regrets. "I wish I could say he's been making the right choices." Buta loud roar of engines cut through our proximity, slicing apart our plans like crude scissors. Adrenaline surged once more, the urgency of the moment breathing new life into our fragile resolve. "Please, Felipe, if you truly came to protect him, help us." Clara's voice pierced the air, vibrant and desperate. Her vulnerability, her willingness to push through the suffocating fear, fueled her fire. He flinched but then nodded sharply. "Fine. But we need to keep moving," he warned. "They'll be onto us in seconds." His confirmation ignited a flicker of hope, yet there was still a tug of uncertainty tethering me back. "Where do we go?" I asked. "Follow me," he said, turning on his heel. "I've got a palatial old warehouse near the docks. It might buy us some time." As we trailed behind him, the asphalt of the street morphed into an almost foreign landscape, straddling shadows and uncertainty. Clara remained close to my side, her hand never leaving mine as we hurried toward the warehouse, our footsteps echoing our racing hearts. In our haste, I glimpsed Clara's face. I could see the conflict running wild behind her eyes. "What if we can't reach him in time?" she murmured, her voice thick with the weight of potential loss. "What if he's already don't?" I interrupted, squeezing her hand tighter, a silent promise stronger than words. "We will." Arriving at the warehouse felt surreal, the dingy exterior offering a warped facade of safety. Inside, the air was damp and heavy, the walls adorned with decades of peeling paint that looked back as if they might tell tales of vulnerability hidden within. The space felt strangely safe, almost sacred in its disheveled remembrance as we settled among the relics of a forgotten time. I watched Clara wrestle with her thoughts, her eyes glazed, swimming through currents of fear and love. She leaned against a rusted beam, surrendering to the moment, and I stepped closer, bracing myself for her inevitable admission, one I sensed was lurking behind her apprehension. "What if I'm not strong enough?" Clara finally whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of her vulnerability. "What if I'm just dragging everyone down?" "Clara, look at me," I said firmly, drawing closer. "This isn't about strength. It's about heart, and you have more than enough of that. You've fought so hard, and that fight doesn't go unnoticed." She stared back, apprehension battling a flickering flame of confidence, the echoes of her past still clinging to her like shadows. "But Raphael, it feels like everything is unraveling, and I don't know how to piece it back together." "That I don't know either," I admitted, feeling her struggle resonate. "But we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe we could change things. Maybe this is our moment to find a way forward, even through heartache." Before Clara could respond, Felipe's voice cut through the murky atmosphere like a whistle in the fog. "They're coming. We have to be ready." The harsh urgency gripped us, and with it came the familiar whisper of dread, pressing down on our shoulders. Just then, my phone buzzed loudly, the shattering sound of doom echoing in the quiet of our hiding place. Everyone turned, tension rising as I pulled it from my pocket, heart plummeting when I read the message on the screen. That IT was from an unknown number but cut straight to the core. "We have Raphael. If you want him back, come to the old warehouse on Belgrave Street." Alone. The world shrank around me, the echo of that message wrapping around my throat like a vice grip. I felt my breaths grow shallow, fear coursing through my veins as the implications stole the ground beneath me. "Get ready," I whispered, fighting to wrap my mind around the possibilities closing in like the walls of this derelict structure. "Whatever happens next, we need to stay together." As Clara clung to me, The uncertainty of our fate loomed like a thunderstorm overhead. We were teetering on the brink of a precipice, seconds away from a confrontation that could unravel everything. The line between safety and chaos had never felt so fragile, and with that realization came the chilling understanding that whatever sacrifices lay ahead, we would face them together or not at all. The air in the warehouse was thick with tension, each shadow stretching and shrinking in a strangely rhythmic dance as the anxiety coursed through me. Clara stood beside me, her eyes wide with unshed tears, as the implications of the message blurred the lines between hope and despair. Felipe's presence anchored us, but his own anxiety was palpable, making our sanctuary feel like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. "Who would do this?" Clara whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Why would they take Raphael? What do they want?" I wished I had answers to provide, wished I could soothe her fears, but the truth was I felt just as lost. "It doesn't matter," I said, attempting to project confidence. "We have to think about how to get him back." Felipe closed his eyes for a moment, and I saw the struggle written across his face, remnants of guilt and anger mingled in his expression. "They have reasons," he finally murmured, opening his eyes. "People don't just act without purpose. Whoever took him is trying to send a message, and Raphael, he's always had a knack for attracting trouble, like you didn't." Clara shot back, her voice a mixture of frustration and weariness. "You may not have been in the limelight, but you're just as much part of this mess." The words hung in the air, raw and painful. Felipe stiffened but didn't respond. His jaw clenched tightly. Whatever had transpired between the brothers was a wound that ran deep, one that was only worsened by the current crisis as the silence grew heavier. I could feel the walls closing in on us, each second that passed a constant reminder of the very real threats lurking outside. "We need a plan," I urged, forcing the tension back into focus. "We can't just act on impulse." "Agreed," Felipe replied, his voice steadying as he moved to the far wall, peeling back layers of memories gathered in dusty crates. "If they want Raphael back, then we need to give them what they expect. But we must be smarter than that." There was something strategic in his tone, a glimmer of the leader I now realized lived beneath his passive demeanor. "What do you mean?" I asked, trading a glance with Clara, who seemed to absorb every word, a spark of energy reigniting within the shadows of her doubt. "The message said to come alone. We can't afford to lose anyone else." "He'll go," Felipe stated, his gaze fierce and unyielding. "He'll buy us time to prepare while you two look for a way to help from here." "No," Clara and I said simultaneously, an immediate wave of panic rising in my chest. "You can't do this alone. Do you have a better idea?" Felipe shot back, his frustration boiling over. "If they get wind of us, we risk everything. You need to stay hidden while I buy even the slightest chance to turn the tables." "But what if they don't let you go?" Clara's voice cracked, the fear of loss creeping through every syllable. "What if they suspect you're not alone?" "I won't let that happen," he snapped, the mask of stoicism lifting momentarily to reveal an undercurrent of deep-seated love for his brother. "I'm choosing this, just like he did when he decided to run, to shield you both from this madness." The truth stung as Clara's heart visibly cracked under the weight of his words, the enormity of their shared past churning terrible emotions within her. Fear coursed through me too, but I also felt the determination hardening into something resolute. "Okay," I finally said, trying to hold back the tremor of doubt, "but we need to plan this carefully. If you go, we will make sure you have backup waiting somewhere. You can't face this alone." "Fine," Felipe agreed reluctantly, "but we can't waste any more time." With each heartbeat, I felt the rawness of impending loss approaching again, a sickness deep in my stomach. As we huddled together, pooling our ideas, Clara's hand in mine felt like our last remaining tether to hope. We moved deftly, mapping out our options and contingencies. A slight maneuvering against doomed circumstances felt almost like rebellion, a shout against despair. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse, an explosion of noise that sent us all colliding into a defensive stance, breathless and alarmed. From the corner of my eye, I caught Movement's shadow slipping stealthily past the cracked window beside us. Before we could react, a figure appeared at the entrance, illuminated momentarily by the fading light outside, casting a long shadow across our makeshift sanctuary. My heart raced, terror gripping me as a familiar outline emerged from the darkness, the last person on earth I expected to see. "Dad?" Clara breathed, her voice barely a whisper, layered with astonishment and uncertainty. What unfolded within that moment felt like a turning point, a crumbling intersection where our fears met the haunting familiarity of a deeply complicated love encased in silence. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she stepped toward him, hope battling anguish in tandem. Questions flooded my mind. Why was he here? What had driven him to find Clara after all this time? And most importantly, what consequences lay ahead with his sudden arrival amidst this chaos? As the darkness deepened around us, I realized we were not just teetering on the edge of danger. We were entangled in a web that twisted and turned into places I never anticipated. The only certainty I felt was that the tension was ready to snap, and within it all, Clara's uncertainty echoed louder than ever, igniting a fresh wave of vulnerability, one that hinted that our fight was only just beginning. The air felt charged as Clara took a step forward, her heart caught between years of abandonment and the promise of reunion. I could barely process the sight of him, our father, standing there, his silhouette bathed in the dying light, a blend of shadows and unprepared emotions. My mind spun with rapid flashes of memories. Store-bought sweaters for winter, feeble attempts at fishing in a lake near our childhood home, the awkward but heartfelt hugs after long absences. "Why are you here?" Clara's voice trembled, not entirely sure if she wanted the answer to that question. Her vulnerability pulled at my heart, the frail hope clinging like a spider's thread to a fragile existence. "I got your message." His voice was gravelly, worn down by the years. "I wasn't going to let you face this alone." I could see beneath his bravado the trembling hands that hung in front of him, the eyes that darted to find reassurance yet only revealed guilt. "We're in a precarious situation, Dad," I interjected, stepping closer to Clara, wanting to shield her from the weight of unspoken regrets. "You shouldn't have come here." "Maybe," but when I heard Raphael was missing, his words trailed off, remorse washing over him like a forgotten tide. It was evident that regret defined his every interaction, an invisible shackling reminding him of a life he chose to leave behind. Clara shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. "You think you can just show up? After everything, you think you can just swat our savior?" "Clara," I whispered, desperate for her to temper her outrage, but she pressed on. She had every right to, standing in front of a father that had, for so long, lingered like a ghost in our thoughts, both desired and resented. "That I am here to help," he insisted, the pleading echo of his voice battling against the emotional storm. "You need someone on the outside, someone who can talk to people I once knew. I can get you answers." Suddenly petrified by today's insanity and the looming shadows of betrayals long buried, I found myself torn. Did we trust him enough to let him into this fragile space we fought so desperately to protect? And what if you're not ready to make the right choices this time? I countered anxiously. "How do we know you won't make things worse?" "Because I know what's at stake," he replied, a hint of steel seeping into his tone, "and am willing to do whatever it takes to bring Raphael home." The combination of desperation and hope hung heavy in the room, thickening the air until it felt stifling. For a moment, the three of us, me, Clara, and our father, stood in a fragile truce, each of us navigating a tangled forest of past scars and new possibilities. Felipe remained silent, lingering at the edge, feeling more like an observer than a participant. I caught his gaze, reflecting a mix of skepticism and intrigue. He knew better than any of us the cost of trusting someone when fear clouds judgment. "Do we believe him?" Clara asked, a tremor of doubt lacing her tone, her eyes darting between us without a word. I clasped her hand tighter, squeezing softly as a nod of solidarity. But even as I did, a gnawing doubt clawed at my insides. This reckless leap of faith would put our lives on the line, forcing us to navigate through a minefield of threats, not only from those who took Raphael but from the fragility of this renewed relationship with our father. "If you want to help, prove it." Felipe spoke out suddenly, his voice steady as he brought the focus of the room back. "We need to lay everything on the table. No more half-truths. What do you really know about this? Who is behind Raphael's disappearance? The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon, the fatally ripe silence broken only by the sound of Clara's sharp intake of breath. What if our father's answers were laced with more pain than we were ready to confront? "You don't know all the details," he stammered, his mask slipping momentarily to reveal a man still paralyzed by his own worst choices. "But I know it's connected to the deal Raphael was working on. There are dangerous people involved, people who don't take kindly to loose ends." "Loose ends like you?" I inadvertently snapped, a reflexive sting fueled by years of unresolved animosity. "Enough," Felipe interjected with a fierce intensity, the tension boiling over in a way that forced every one of us to take a step back. "We can't afford this. If you have something to share that could help Raphael, now is the time, or we'll be right back at square one." The urgent plea hung between us, a desperate chain reaching out for something solid to grasp. Quietly, I felt the faint warping of hope and despair intertwine again. In that charged moment, Clara stepped forward, surprising me as she met our father's gaze head-on. "Tell us everything," she urged, every ounce of bravery within her spilling over the edge, sparking a ripple of movement. But just as he prepared to divulge, a sound erupted outside, a rapid series of footsteps, amplified by the night's frail silence. "Someone's coming," Felipe whispered, fear etched deeply into his features. My heart raced, a new wave of dread crashing through me as my gaze flitted toward the entrance. We were dangerous, exposed now, caught in a loose grip between the past's haunting revelations and an uncertain future overlaid by threats. Could the chaos we faced right outside overshadow our hope for Raphael? Would the choice to embrace our father's return unravel us completely? The footsteps grew louder, thundering in time with the frantic pulsing of my heart. It felt like the moment before a storm unleashed its full fury, a tangled web of emotions and impending danger clasped tightly in the fragile moment of our family's reunion. And in that moment, I realized the quiet ache of fate smiling down upon us, ready to reshape the paths that lay ahead in unimaginable ways. As the footsteps approached, a chill swept through the room, igniting tension with a ferocity that sent shivers down my spine. We were caught in the delicate balance of vulnerability and imminent danger, the air thickening with uncertainty. Clara's grip on my hand tightened as our shared fear became a low hum that reverberated against the walls, echoing the unresolved pain from our past. "Stay close," I murmured to her, urging her back towards the shadows of the room. Felipe shifted cautiously, placing himself in front of USA's silent protector standing guard against the impending storm. Our father, stripped of bravado, had fallen silent once more, his eyes darting toward the door where the sounds of hurried footsteps grew closer. This had been his moment to shine, an opportunity to regain trust, yet the specter of the risks had brought with him now threatened to consume us all. The door swung open, nearly crashing against the wall. 3 figures stepped over the threshold, their faces obscured by the dim light and the weight of our apprehension. They were strangers, yet something in their eyes, a mix of authority and something sharper, sent a bitter pang of alarm into our collective heart. "Clara Giordano?" one of them demanded, an authoritative voice that pierced through the anxious air. "Who wants to know?" Clara retorted defiantly, but the quiver in her tone betrayed her bravado. I could see the color fading from her face, fear trading places with anger in a heartbeat. The lead figure tilted his head slightly, exchanging a glance with the others, as if gauging the importance of his next words. "We have questions regarding your brother. You were seen in his vicinity before. He went missing. What do you know about Raphael?" Felipe interjected, stepping forward, the protective instinct in him radiating like a force field. "He has nothing to do with whatever business you're cooking up. Leave him out of this." The man smiled, though the gesture held no warmth. "Business? Isn't that exactly why we're here? You should understand by now that Raphael was a marked man long before he went missing. We don't deal in innocence." I felt Clara flinch beside me, the reality of Raphael's involvement striking a jarring note. We hadn't yet grasped the full scope of the world he'd navigated, the shadows that loomed over his every decision. Hope had been a distant lighthouse, flickering against the storms, but now it felt like we were losing sight of it completely. What do you want? I found myself asking, my voice low, almost cracking under the weight of burgeoning despair. If you have information, then share it. I can't. None of us can just stand by and do nothing. Simple. The man stepped further inside, and I could see the faint outline of a badge on his belt. An agent of some sort. We want you to cooperate with us. Your father knows things about this operation that could help us. In return, we might be able to help locate your brother. The clock is ticking. My heart raced in disbelief. The very man who had wandered in with promises of salvation was now being called upon as a bargaining chip in a game we hadn't even signed up for. Clara's nostrils flared as she processed the implications, and I squeezed her hand tighter, trying to anchor her as the tides of chaos swirled beneath us. Are you serious? Felipe barked, the edge of his voice sharp enough to cut through the suffocating tension. You can't just use this situation for leverage. He's not some pawn. Rafael is our family. The agent's gaze hardened. This is bigger than family ties. You need to understand the stakes. Your brother was digging too deep, and if you don't play along, you may find it's not just Rafael we can't save. He gestured to the two other agents behind him. Your father has connections to the underground. He can help us backtrack. If he's uncooperative, then I'm afraid we haven't the luxury of choice. Our father, too, seemed to shrink further into himself, shoulders slumped as if grappling with the weight of his past. Perhaps he knew the implications better than we did. The cost of uncovering secrets carved deep into his skin. For years he had danced with danger, and now it threatened to swallow us whole. Dad, you have to say something, Clara cried, looking at him with fierce determination but also a glimmer of hope, as if she could will him to action with her gaze alone. You can't let them treat you like this, like some tool to be drawn upon. This is about Rafael. But the shadows of regret loomed larger in our father's eyes, the ghosts of mistakes tangled with his hesitance. I want to help, he stammered, but I don't know the extent of their involvement. Not anymore. Then the clock runs out, the agent cut in, turning towards Clara, Felipe, and me. Decide quickly. You either risk it all to save your brother, or you let fear chain you down. Choose. The scrutiny of their gaze was intense, leaving no room for denial. The four of us, bound by blood and fear, love and uncertainty, stood at the precipice of heart-wrenching choices. Would relinquishing trust in our father lead us further into darkness, or could we salvage a flicker of light from the wreckage of our past? Unsure of the path forward, I turned to Clara, finding her expression mirroring the tempest within me. It was as if the very weight of the world had settled onto our shoulders, and the realization struck with fresh urgency that we had to make our choice, and soon. I opened my mouth, about to propose our next steps, when suddenly the sound of a distant siren wailed through the night, slicing through the oppressive stillness like a blade. Come on, Felipe urged, drawing us closer together. There was no time left to linger in indecision. The storm was approaching, and just as we braced ourselves for whatever awaited outside, the door trembled wildly, prompting the piercing question that clawed at my insides. What awaited us on the other side of our resolve? How far would we be willing to go to uncover the painful truths lurking beneath the surface? The footsteps of fate were closing in, and in that moment of terrifying clarity, I understood we were not simply fighting for Rafael anymore. We were wrestling with the very essence of trust that defined our family, teetering on the edge of a profound upheaval that would reshape everything we thought we knew about ourselves and each other. The sirens wailed like mournful ghosts, their shrill cries amplifying the chaos, drowning us in uncertainty. Clara's grip on my hand tightened as reality snapped into focus. This was no longer just about Rafael's fate. This was about confronting our family's fractured past and the elusive hope of healing. We have to decide now, I urged, glancing between Clara, Felipe, and our father, whose face wore the weight of every choice he had made and those yet to come. Do we trust him, or do we turn our backs on another chance? What if trusting him means walking into a trap? Clara murmured, her voice heavy with doubt. I could see the pain flickering in her eyes, the scars of abandonment still aching with every reminder of the father she had longed for yet pushed away. My heart raced with the furious clashing of hope and fear. But he's here, I replied, my voice quaking with urgency. He wants to help us find Rafael. If we don't at least explore this, we might lose him for good. Felipe stepped forward, his resolve hardening. We need to take control of the narrative. Dad, if you really want to protect us, you need to be fully honest about what you know. No more secrets or half-truths. Our father swallowed hard, the tension thickening as every breath drew us nearer to the storm outside. I am not sure I have the strength to face my past, he confessed, the tremor of vulnerability radiating from him. But for Raphael, I'll try. The agents glared, impatience etched in their features. It's now or never, one of them snapped. Make your choice. With the weight of the world snapping at our heels, Clara took a deep breath and stepped closer to our father. If you really want to protect us, then we have to lean on each other fully. No more running, no more hiding. We fight this together. Her words dripped with raw courage, pulling the tether of our fragmented hearts towards a singular goal. And if you betray us, she continued, locking eyes with our father, you'll lose us forever. I in that moment, I understood. We were no longer just a fractured family. We were a team bound by blood and shared purpose. An unbreakable bond formed not in perfection but in the struggle of existence. Let's go get him, I urged, turning to the agents, desperate to reclaim our destinies. The lead agent nodded, motioning for us to follow. Then let's move. We filed out of the warehouse, the chilling night air nipping at our heels. Dread slipped past my resolve as we hurried into the unknown, hopeful yet terrified of the path ahead. Every pounding step felt like a heartbeat resounding in anticipation for both Raphael's fate and the overcome chasm that long separated our family. As we approached the waiting vehicles, tension crackled through the air. Clara's fingers curled tighter against my palm, a pulse of electric urgency thrumming between us. I glanced at her, the fierce resolve in her eyes shining bright against the shadows. She was ready to face whatever demons lay ahead, to brave the depths and navigate uncharted waters together. Keep close to us, an agent instructed, the urgency palpable in his tone. This won't be easy. The silent promise of unity coiled around me as we settled into the back of the vehicle, Clara and Felipe flanking me, while our father sat across from us, uncertainty etched deeply upon his features. Hope blossomed between us, fragile yet fiercely resilient, like new green shoots pushing through the snow-laden earth. The journey unfolded with heavy silence, each passing moment laden with memories and unspoiled dreams. Together we navigated the tension, leaning on that shared pulse of determination. Finally, as we approached the hidden location where Raphael had last been seen, I felt our fractures beginning to bind, not as a perfect family but as a family of fighters, ready to reclaim what had been lost, bursting through the door that led into the heart of the operation. The sight before us was an undeniable chaos, menacing figures milled about, and our breath hitched as we spotted Raphael, cornered and guarded, the very essence of struggle shimmering in his eyes. Raphael, Clara called out, her voice ringing against the oppressive noise, cutting through layers of tension wrapped around us like chains. Every pair of eyes turned towards us, and the stale air grew heavier still, igniting the battlefield of our lives between love and fear. Get down, one of the agents shouted, urgency pulsing like an electric jolt through the chaos. In a split second, everything shifted, their weapons drawn, the ground shook, and time collapsed in on itself. A cacophony of fear enveloped my senses as adrenaline surged through my veins, ready to fight for our family, for Raphael, for everything we had lost and dared to reclaim. As our worlds collided, the past and the present fused into a maelstrom of emotions, and I felt an awakening deep within my heart, a connection to all that we had fought for and all the pain we had endured, leading us to this precipice of destiny. With one final scream echoing in the chaos, I murmured into the storm at the center. Of life and love, the word that burned through the mess of shattered dreams and fears. Family. In that moment, everything came rushing back, the love, the sacrifices, the quiet strength that bound us together. And as we stood ready to confront the darkness, I realized this was our moment to rise, to embrace not who we had been, but who we truly were. A family destined to fight until the very end for each other, for love, and for a future just waiting to be written anew.